Welcome to Ohio Stadium, home of the Ohio State Buckeyes, and tonight, home of the Ohio State versus Michigan State football game. I'm Tom Moore of BuckeyeHuddle.com, joined by Tony Gerdeman, also of BuckeyeHuddle.com. Going to talk about injuries, and Tony, on the Ohio State defense this week, there are some injuries. The Buckeyes playing very shorthanded yet again tonight.
Yeah, 3 starters down this week on the defensive side of the ball. Middle linebacker Tommy Eichenberg and both starting safeties Josh Proctor, Lathan Ransom. We expected Lathan Ransom to continue to be on the list for a while. Josh Proctor left last week's game with, a bump on the head, that sort of thing. And then, of course, Tommy Eichenberg had what Jim Knowles said was an elbow, without giving us too much information.
I have 2 elbows.
Yes, and so all of that information and that leads to 3 starters out for the Ohio State Buckeye defense. What kind of impact will that have?
Yeah, I mean, this Michigan State is not a team where you're super concerned about your secondary. The Spartans have just, Ohio State is expected to have a substantial advantage against the Michigan State offense based on the way the Michigan State offense has played and the way the Ohio State defense has played this year. And I think maybe there are guys who, if this was Michigan week, you might have some guys who might be playing tonight that are not playing instead because it's Michigan State and not Michigan. The good news is some of the names we did not say there. Denzel Burke, that he was a little bit up in the air earlier in the week. He is off the availability report. Does that mean he will play? Well, we never know that until the ball leaves the tee, which will happen at 7:30 tonight. But the fact that he's someone who, I think, if you're looking ahead to the Michigan game, he's someone you want to have available 2 weeks in advance, and then you just hope you keep him healthy.
Well, I don't know, Tom. I watched Michigan play today, and they did not throw the ball in the second half, so I don't know that cornerbacks actually matter in that game. But
did they not throw the ball at all in the second half?
The one throw got called back because of a penalty or something like that. So
I watched it, but I was not watching that close. Boy, did J.J. McCarthy have his Heisman moment watching someone else run the football?
But in terms of Denzel Burke, you want him to get back into the flow of things because you're not going to be tested necessarily against Michigan State or Minnesota, but you still want him to get loose again. Now, Michigan State they do have a couple of playmakers at receiver. We saw a little bit of that last week against Nebraska, but it requires pass protection, accuracy with the throw, and then completing the catch. And this will be a nice warm up, I guess, for him if he's out there.
Yeah, and so if you have him, you have Davis Nigbenos, and you have Jordan Hancock. That's probably this is not a Michigan State offense that has been popping big plays all over the place. So you're not if you were going to not be a little shorthanded at safety, this is not a terrible game to be shorthanded at safety. What do you think they do at safety? My assumption is you put Sonny Styles at the boundary position where Lathan Ransom has been playing. And then do you put Malik Hartford at the adjuster position? Who do you play at that deep safety spot?
Well, Malik Hartford came in for Josh Proctor last week. You remember Jihad Carter is still on the team. He's not on the injury report, but I don't know that he's ever really been healthy at Ohio State. Even in the spring, he was injured like 2 weeks in. I do remember, I think, the Youngstown State game when Malik Hartford started, had some rough moments, and then Jihad Carter came in for him. So I don't know where Hartford is health-wise, or Jihad Carter, right? Jihad Carter,
yeah.
Yeah, is where he is health-wise, but he's not on the list, so I would assume he's available. But last week they went with Hartford instead of Carter.
Carter was not on the list last week at Rutgers either, and then you saw Hartford ahead of Carter. And this is, if they're in this, we're talking about the same spot that Josh Proctor plays, just in case you're not sure on safety spots. This is the adjuster, the deep safety spot where Josh Proctor's played all year. There's, I think, more of a question: does Lathan Ransom come back in a week or 2 weeks, or later than that? Josh Proctor, there's no real concern that he's going to be a long-term injury situation. So, if you're not worried about getting popped for a bunch of deep plays over the top, maybe you let the younger, maybe you sort of default to the younger guy. And if Carter was truly available, I could not tell you for certain that I saw him, that he traveled or not last week for Rutgers, but assuming he was available and was there, playing Hartford ahead of him may be a little bit of an indication, like you're not super worried about big plays. get the younger guy, default to the younger guy, get him some reps because that's going to help you down the line, because Josh Proctor, no matter what it may seem like, will not in fact have an infinite amount of eligibility at Ohio State. He's approaching an infinite number, but is not actually going to get there. On the other side of the ball, relatively good news. Mayan Williams obviously out for the season. That is not good news. Noah Emeka-Ibuka on the injury report. He is back and officially healthy. He, of course, played last week. No Cade Stover on the injury report. He did not play last week. We were told he could have played. That was what Ryan Day said. Could have played if needed. He's not on the availability report again. So assuming that means he could play, I think you may have a team of wild horses to keep him off the field if, for a second straight week. But, I will be interested to see if he is out there, because obviously that's not a concern for 2 weeks from now, which is good news. Do you just sort of play it safe and, much like Emeka-Ibuka was kind of like a maybe, could play, possibly could play if needed for a couple weeks and didn't play? I wonder if they're going to play it a little safe with Cade Stover again.
Well, I think we'll know maybe even before the first snap, because last week watching him while the kickoff was getting ready, like he went and put his helmet on the bench, and then he got into the huddle with the players, with his teammates. So I'll be watching today to see if the same thing happens. Like he's warming up, going through warm-ups, but then the helmet goes and sits on the bench while he goes and walks on the sideline without his helmet. That was a pretty significant indication he wasn't going to play that last week. It'll be another sign, if the helmet stays with him, that we can expect him to play.
And there were a couple other tight ends who are out. Zach Herbstreit, the walk-on, out for the season. Joe Royer also out. So now you're talking about, and of course Bennett Christian out for the season as well. So at this point you're talking about G. Scott, you're talking about the walk-on Patrick Gerd, you're talking about Sam Hart, you're talking about Jelani Thurman, and that's kind of it. I mean, they're getting a little thin at tight end if you don't have Cade Stover out there. Do we see less 12 personnel? They love running 12 personnel, but if I think there's an argument to be made that your third wide receiver is probably better than your second tight end if your second tight end is neither Cade Stover nor G. Scott nor Joe Royer nor Bennett Christian. I mean, at some point, I know they love playing, having that second block, the extra blocker in the backfield or whatever, but I would think you'd see more 3 wide receiver sets.
Well, and I think you can also replace the 12 with a 21, with the 2 backs, which they've been mixing in a little bit more with Chip Trainum in there as a guy that can run, can block, can catch. They can go either way with him and Trey Henderson. So I think they've got some stuff they like there. And that may, honestly, if they decide to hold out Cade Stover in this one, that would give them an opportunity to work more on that, because that gives defenses something to have to work on and prepare for. And the more you work on it, the better it gets, because it's been kind of wishy-washy at times this year. The blocking hasn't necessarily been great for the running backs, by the running backs. Maybe this is an opportunity to get some more work done that way.
And we touched on this earlier, but didn't actually get into it. We talked a bunch about the safeties. We didn't really talk about Tommy Eichenberg. You mentioned the elbow thing for Tommy Eichenberg. He is out for the game. You would assume this means you're going to see Steele Chambers and Cody Simon, and maybe you see more of a third linebacker in there, because I think you normally would have assumed, okay, it's Sonny Styles, maybe that third linebacker. Well, no, he's at that banded safety spot. So there's not a ton of options behind those guys other than, then you're talking about CJ Hicks or Gabe Powers or Reed Carrico or someone like that who we really have not seen a whole heck of a lot.
Well, and Ryan Day, I don't know if it was his radio show or the lightning round this week or when we talked to him on Tuesday, said CJ Hicks is close. And so that could be somebody you see in this one. Again, this should be a game where you can play some younger guys, some guys who are not yet proven. I'm interested to see if they do continue to use a little bit of a rotation at will, which would be Steele Chambers, because he's been rotating with Cody Simon all season long. Do they continue to do a little bit of that with CJ Hicks rotating in, or do they just stay with the 2 seniors? I'd probably expect them to stay with the 2 seniors until it's time to bring in some younger guys, but I think this would be a good opportunity for CJ Hicks to get out there with a senior or 2 and see what he can do.
Yeah, get some extended play in a game where you're probably not super concerned about an upset. Buckeyes are, what, a 28-point favorite?
31 and a half.
31 and a half, all right. So if you got that one at Ohio State minus 21 during the first week of the season, good for you. Some value there. The linebacker rotation is kind of interesting because it feels like in the wide receivers, you've seen, like last week especially, you saw Julian Fleming more when they were running the ball because they like him as a run blocker, and you saw maybe a little more Carnell Tate during passing situations because I think they like some of the explosiveness he brings to that passing offense. With the linebackers, it has felt like Steel Chambers is more in the passing situation type. He's that type of will linebacker for them. And you've seen Cody Simon a little more in the short yardage, run heavy types of situations. I'm with you. I think I expect them to play the two older guys, and the Will and the Mike are fairly interchangeable in the Ohio State defense, so that's not really a positional concern or anything like that. I would sort of expect this to maybe be a little bit of a, play the two seniors, but then maybe later on, if you're at the point where, okay, bring in a CJ Hicks, then maybe you are kind of doing a little more situational stuff.
Yeah, and I think Knowles said that Gabe Powers, and Knowles or Day also talked about Gabe Powers making plays on special teams and pressing them. So maybe in the fourth quarter, you see both of them out there at linebacker together.
So let's talk a little bit about just game on the whole. My expectation is this Michigan State defense, this is not a vintage Mark D'Antonio Michigan State team by any means, but this is not a terrible Michigan State team. Their run defense has been okay. The pass defense has been not quite as bad as it has been in previous years, although that does not set the bar very high. Offense, not a lot of much of anything, really. I'm not expecting Michigan State to get north of 10, 13 points. I think I picked them to score 7, but they maybe get to 10, maybe get to 13 or 14, but that's about it. Is this a game where Ohio State can pull away and have a comfortable, easy second half, or is this a game where you think, this is going to be another? How many slow starts have we seen? Yeah. Is this another slow start for the offense, and then eventually you pull away?
I'm not really expecting a slow start. I think the environment's going to be good. I think the running game has picked up, so that will help any kind of start that you have. I do expect them to get Marvin Harrison involved quite a bit, try to continue the Heisman push with some numbers, and of course, you get a Mecca back, that's going to be big, and maybe there's some shots there for him as well. You can dial some things up. So I actually went into the 40s this week.
Ooh.
So I think I'm ready to believe. Now, I didn't go far into the 40s. I went 42 to 10. Is 10 with 3 defensive starters out? Is that?
Yeah, and I picked 35-7 just because I kind of have to see them get into the 40s against a Power 5 team before I really buy it. But yeah, if this is a full Ohio State defense, full everyone full go, I think this is a game where you never pick a shutout, but I might pick them to score 3 points. With a couple, with 3 starters out and you're shuffling some other guys around, it feels like you could have, especially in the second half of the game, you could have, it's whatever, 17-3 at the half, and then you get a touchdown at the end, and it's boom, you're at 10 or whatever. It does not feel like one where Ohio State, unless there's some, you make the big mistake and then there's a pick six, a scoop and score, whatever. Maybe a special teams debacle, who's to say? But, unless you make the big mistake somewhere, it doesn't feel like a game where Michigan State's going to break 20 points.
How much Devin Brown are you expecting? Do you think we'll get to see him? I think this would be an opportunity to get him out there, get the ankle loosened, and just give him some snaps, because you still need him to be ready to go, especially when you already have a gimpy ankle on your starting quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's I think the concern is it's going to be chilly again. Then Kyle McCord has both quarterbacks have bum ankles right now, and they're both sort of in the recovery process from those. Kyle McCord injured his against Wisconsin. Devin Brown injured hers against Penn State, so that was a week before Wisconsin. It's going to be in the high 30s. It's going to, that is a sore ankles get stiff kind of weather. I mean, I feel like we're having this conversation every week, but it's kind of been the same weather every week. So I would expect you see Devin Brown. I think you got to let Kyle McCord play into the second half, certainly. And we're saying this, and this game's going to end up 17-10, and everyone's going to freak out and blame us. But if Ohio State's up 3-4 touchdowns in the middle of the third quarter, I think that's a great chance to get Kyle McCord off the field. The goal is in 2 weeks. You don't need to win with style points this week. You need to win the football game, get the heck out of here with as many people healthy as you can, and the same goal for next week. The big goal, the big prize is in 2 weeks. goal number one, other than win the game, should be get everyone to that game as healthy as humanly possible. I think you got to sort of manage your personnel to that. And if that means giving Devin Brown a series or two with the first string offense, great. I think you should do that, because Kyle McCord had that ankle injury against Wisconsin. If you had Devin Brown at Wisconsin, you might have played Devin Brown at Wisconsin. You didn't have him, so then therefore you didn't. I think you got to get Devin Brown a series or two with the ones, because he is one play away at all times from being the guy who has to lead them into Ann Arbor.
But can Kyle McCord afford to be off the field for like 30 minutes to get that drive in? You know, that's I mean, in terms of like 30 minutes of watch time, actual time, like he might be out there on the sideline for a while. But these are all things that Ryan Day they're talking about when they'll have plans to bring somebody in. It's like, but it never comes to fruition because of circumstance and field position and momentum and all kinds of things. Yeah, and
I'm not saying you want to play Devin Brown in the first quarter or the second quarter. Like, get the game in hand and then give him a drive or two in the third quarter, whenever it is. Yeah, I think that's when you're maybe thinking about it. But we will be here all night covering this game for you at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Make sure if you're enjoying our videos, hit that thumbs up. Also, make sure you are subscribed to our channel at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. So hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. We'll be back after the game with our live post-game coverage, including interviews with Ohio State players and coaches, probably some interviews with some folks on the Michigan State side as well. And then, of course, Tony and I doing our live instant reaction show from Buckeye Weekly. Might talk a little Michigan, Penn State on that show as well. Tends to come up on these shows these days. So we'll be back after the game with that. So thank you guys all for joining us, and we'll see you after the game.